All right, here's your homework video on circles. Identify the center and radius of each circle. So the center here, pretty simple, positive 7, a negative 5. There it is. And then the radius is the square root of 81, which is 9. Again here, the center here, negative 11, that's 0. And the radius is the square root of 60, which is fine. You can leave it that way. Write the equation in standard form, the center and the radius, then graph it. So, first of all, in standard form, so we have 5x squared. We're going to add 5y squared. That should be a 2. We're going to add 5y squared, and that's equal to 80. I think I saw that as a little exponent 5. That should be a 2. Just a typo. Then we're going to divide everything by 5. So when I divide everything by 5, 80 divided by 5 is 16. So the center is at 0, 0, and the radius is 16. So here's the center. Count 4 in all directions. And then do your circle to the best of your ability. All right. Here we have a linear term with x squared. So for this one, we need to complete the square. So I'm going to remind you again what we do. So to complete the square, we're going to divide the linear coefficient by 2 and square it. So 4 divided by 2 is 2, and square it, you get 4. We're going to do, and I'll put parentheses around it. We're going to do the same thing for y. We're going to go divide by 2. So 10 divided by 2 is 5, and square it. That allows us to complete the square. And then whatever I added on the left side, I have to add to the right side. So I need 4 and I need 25. So we're going to factor this. So this is x plus 2 squared. We're going to factor this. This is y plus 5 squared. And then combine the constants here. So that's 25. Take a room, that's 9. So that means the center of the circle is at negative 2, negative 5. And the radius is the square root of 9, which is 3. So go to negative 2, negative 5. And then count up 3, to the right 3, bottom 3, and left 3. And then draw your circle. All right, let's do the same work here for number 5. So we have x squared subtract 6x. I'm also going to add y squared, and I'm going to subtract 8y so that the x's and y's are together on one side of the equation to put it in standard form. I'm going to complete the square. So divide by 2. So negative 6 divided by 2 is negative 3. Square it, and you get 9. We're going to do the same thing for y. Divide by 2 and square it, I get 16. Oh, and I got to add whatever number I just added there. So it's 9 and 16. I need to add to 0. So now we're going to put it together. So we're going to factor the x. That's x subtract 3 squared. We're going to factor the y. That's y minus 4. And then add up the right side, which is 25. So the center is at positive 3, positive 4. And the radius is the square root of 25, which is 5. So find the center, then count up 5, to the right 5, down 5, and left 5. And then make your circle. Number 6. Write this in standard form. So step 1 is to bring all the x's and y's on one side. So I'm going to subtract 6y, but I'm going to leave negative 54 on the right side. Then I'm going to complete the square. So divide by 2 and square it, that's 49. Again, divide by 2 and square it, that's 9. And then those numbers are going to be added to the right side. So we're going to add 49 and add 9. So we have x plus 7 squared. We have y minus 3 squared. And then on the right side, we have, combine those together, 4. So now what is the center? So the center is at negative 7 and positive 3. The radius is the square root of 4, which is 2. So we have negative 7 and 3. And now count. Up 2, to the right 2, bottom 2, left 2, and then draw your circle that has a radius of 2. All right, next page. No graphing for this one, but go in the other direction. If you're given the center and radius, what's the equation? So if I'm given that, I can go right to the equation. X subtract 5 squared, y plus 2 squared, and then square the radius. So it's 16 times 3, which is 48. Again, 0, that's just x squared. 9, that's y subtract 9 squared. And then again, square. Now this is the diameter. So what's half of that? Just divide it by 2, and you get 3 root 5. So that's what the radius is. So just divide by 2. You just need to go 6 divided by 2 for that number. And then square this. That's 9 times 5, which is 45. Here we have the center. So I'm going to write it down right away. And then I have the circumference. Now recall, circumference is 2 pi r. So when I divide by 2 pi to get r by itself, 14 pi divided by 2 pi is 7. So when you square it, that number is 49. Here again, we have x plus 7 squared plus y minus 11 squared. That's the area. So the area is pi r squared. So 2 pi root 7. When I divide by pi, I'm left with r squared equal 2 root 7, which is what I need. So I don't need to square and then square root it and so on back and forth. R squared is what I need for that equation. So it's done. 2 root 7. How about from a graph, can you tell me the equation of it? So first I need to find the center of this. So find where the center is and then count. So it's 5 to the right and 4 down. So the center is at 5, 4. 5, negative 4, sorry. And then what's the radius of it? So count how many up, how many right, how many down. And I count 4. So if I put this together, I'm going to put it down here so I have a little more room. X subtract 5 squared, and then plus y plus 4 squared, and then square the radius and you get 16. Again, find the center of this circle. Sometimes if you find the ends and then count and then find where the middle is of that, that might be helpful. But it's negative 3 and it's 2. That's the center of the circle, and you can count and make sure it's equal distance going in both directions so that you did it correctly. So we have our center at negative 3 and 2. Our radius, if we count over and count, is 7. So now write that down. So it's x plus 3 squared. That's y subtract 2 squared. And then 7 squared is 49. You're given the center and a point on the circle. So to find the radius, it's the distance formula, which is the square root of. You subtract the x's, that's 1, and square it. Subtract the y's, that's negative 4, and square it. So if I put that together, that's the square root of 17. So when I put this together with the center, you have x subtract 6 squared, you have y subtract 6 squared, and then square that, so that's just number of 17. So again, center and a point on a circle. We're going to use the distance formula to find the radius. So subtract the x's, that's 8 squared. Subtract the y's, be careful when you subtract the negative, you're adding, so it's 2. So then put that together. That's 64 and 4. That is the square root of 68. And then when you put it together, you get x subtract 3 squared, y plus 8 squared, and then that's just 68. Two more. You're given the ends of the diameter. So you need to find the center. It's the midpoint. So can you add the x's together, 11 and 17? You add those together and divide by 2. You add the y's together and divide by 2 as well. So that's 28 divided by 2. And that's negative 20 divided by 2. So there's your center. Now that you know the center, you can find the radius. All you need is one of the points. And you'll do the distance formula. Which one has smaller numbers? So the first one we'll use. So subtract the x's, that's 3. Subtract the y's. Make sure when you subtract the negative you're adding. So that's negative 3. So that's 9 and 9. So that's the square root of 18. So when I square it here, x subtract 14 squared, y plus 10 squared, and when you square that, it'll just be 18. All right, last one. You're given the endpoints of the diameter again. So how do you find the center? So to find the center, we're going to add them and divide by 2. We'll just do it in one step. That's negative 18 divided by 2. 7 plus negative 9, that's negative 2 divided by 2. So it's negative 9 and negative 1. To find the radius, it's the distance formula. So subtract the x's, and I get 6. Subtract the y's, and I get negative 16. So this is 36. This is 256. So if I put that together, that's 292. Wait, let me just make sure I do this right. So negative 9. I'm sorry, like crazy here. This is all crazy sauce. I didn't use the center. So we have the center and use one of these points. It's whichever one is fine. So when I subtract negative, this should be 3 squared. And then when you subtract, that should be negative 8 squared. I had a feeling it was wrong. So that should be 9, ha. This should be 64, ha. This should be the square root of 73. And now we can write our answer down. Oh, x plus 9 squared, y plus 1 squared, and square the square root, and you get 73. Got through it. All right, Mr. D Math over and out. I'm proud of you that you're doing your work. Until next time.